right, this is the Brown Duke Gun Show. My name is JP Garcia, here today with Brandon Elias. We are 2 of 3 today. Austin is out making deadlocks, so hopefully that goes really well. And I haven't said this in a long time. You know, somebody called me out on this. It's like, this still is the official podcast for Sentry Defense Indoor Range. It hasn't changed. Yeah. It's always the podcast for Sentry Defense. And today we're going to talk about something that folks in the shop are talking about everywhere. I think people in the internet are talking about everywhere. Staccatos. What makes them popular? Why do we like that body style? You know, the 2011 style. You know, what are the pitfalls of them and stuff like that, right? So one interesting point, since I was doing a little bit of research for the show, did you know that KC and Jesse are now with Staccato?
I did. Yeah. So, I kind of heard some things for a few months now, and I knew it was kind of kept quiet, but they officially released it like last week or so. Yeah. And I didn't know if you heard, so I was going to bring it up on the show and see.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Because, like, you know, like KC's like poster child of 2011s, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like,
yeah.
He shot 2011s forever. He shot Glock too, but.
Yeah. But his Glock open gun, I mean, he shot a true Glock open gun for a while, but then I think, you know, I think Johnny made him a Glock looking one or something like that. Now I'm putting rumors out there. I don't know if that's true, but yeah. So interesting. Yeah. The more surprising thing, I'm less surprised by KC. I'm more surprised that Jesse left Taurus.
I am too. Yeah. Yeah. Cause she's been there for a while, and she posted something on Instagram saying like how many years she's been there. And I know it was like extremely long time.
Sure. Well, and I'm like throwing shade out left and right, but you know, the competition guns. Yeah, when you think about competition guns, you rarely think of Taurus.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
So it makes a lot of sense for those two to be part of Staccato, for sure. It's just, man, it's been a long time, right?
Yeah.
So, but I think she was with, I want to say she was with Team Glock at some point, like in the beginning. Yeah. I think it's when Dave Savigny was still shooting, and he was captain of Team Glock, because I think Randy Rogers, I think, was part of Glock. You know, this is a long time ago.
Yeah, old school.
Yeah, the old school.
Yeah, because I don't know any of like that stuff. Like I hear stories from like Blake's been in it for so long, and you've been in it for so long. So like I hear like, yeah, this person was with them, or they've been shooting for a long time. But I just got into the sport like 5 years ago or so. You know, so I'm still relatively new to that part.
Right. Yeah. So as long as you've been shooting, Jesse's been
with
part of Taurus. Yeah. And KC, well, KC's kind of been, I don't know that, I really tied him to, other than Johnny, Limcat. Right?
Like I think right whenever I started shooting, he might have like just finished with Zev for a little bit. Cause I remember like seeing some still like old Zev pictures with him on it.
Yeah.
But I think he's just with Johnny for a while, and then he moved to Taurus.
Yeah.
Whenever he got with Jesse, and
well, they got married, right? And then he went to Taurus, and now they're with Staccato. So who's over there? So Anthony Pignato, he's still like
Anthony's like I think he's a sales guy.
Yeah.
I wouldn't really say like he's one of their shooters. He does go and compete at matches and stuff like that.
Yeah,
but,
he's good. He's like a master level.
Yeah, master level shooter. But I think he does like a lot of sales and other things for the company too. Like he's more involved, you know, than just the shooter part. But Michelle's over there. Todd Jarrett.
Todd Jarrett's over there.
Todd Jarrett's been there.
Oh, really?
Todd Jarrett's been there. I think he's been there like even before it was Staccato. Like he was with STI, and they just like crossed him over.
Well, that makes sense.
So he's been there the longest, I think. And Michelle just moved last year or so.
I think Todd Jarrett's been with STI for
forever,
ages.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like he's like, I think just always been there.
Yeah.
So.
No, Michelle went recently. I remember shooting a match with her, and she was still with Team Glock. And then you know, I think it was right after. It was like Area 3.
It was last year.
It was last year.
Yeah, that she finally like announced it. You know.
Yeah.
Like that she was leaving Glock, and then
that was good. I think it was a good move.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah. So I mean, nothing wrong with Glock, but it's Staccato's a good company too. I mean, they're they're spending a lot of money on marketing and all of that stuff.
They are, and I think they're going to be around for a while. Like, I know a lot of shooters that do that for a profession. You know, like they're always worried about that. Like a new company starts up and does it, but like you get big names like that to move over. They see something for sure for a long time.
Yeah.
I think Staccato is going to be there for forever. I mean, the company's been around for a long time, but
certainly, yeah.
it just changed names and things like that.
Yeah.
But I don't think they're going anywheres, and I think they're going to stay mainstream for a very long time.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. And now with now they have two hammer competitors with Jesse and KC.
Yeah, I mean they're both like top contenders. Like Jesse, I still say like Jesse's the best woman shooter.
Yeah, well,
they have
for sure. In the U.S. In the U.S. for sure. There's the only one I'd say is even better than her is Maria from the Russia.
Yeah, I've never seen her shoot, but like Jesse's like a true GM. Like,
yeah. Oh, yeah.
Like there's some people that's like GMs and things, and it's like no, Jesse's like true GM.
Jesse's a killer. Yeah, for sure. And she's super nice. You know,
awesome person.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, but yeah, no, I think, but yeah, I mean, like those are the two in conversation, Jesse and Maria, who are like the two best, best ladies in the world, I think. So, at least coming up through my, upbringing, I think they're probably, maybe ladies before and probably after that'll, give them a run for their money.
Yeah.
Those two are really, really good.
And KC's, awesome. Like,
yeah,
KC's also a friend, but he's awesome, super nice guy. But he's a really good competitor, and I always love competing with him. KC's definitely one of those guys that like we get along at the match all the time. Like he'll help me on things, and like I say I help him, but like I'll see something, and he's like, "Oh man, I never saw it that way," or whatever. So we're always going back and forth, and it's never even every match that I've shot with him. Like even before we were actually like competing against each other. And that usually happens. Like if you're not competing directly with that person, they'll give you tips and things, but like once it turned to like, hey, like,
like when you were catching up to him.
Yeah, I'm catching up to him, and like we're going back to back on stages and stuff. Like he still helped me. Last year at Area 4, it was the same thing. He's like, no, Brandon, you shouldn't do that. Do this. Yeah. And at first it's like, are you trying to trick me or not?
No, man. No, he's straight up.
Awesome guy. And he's always been like that way to me. So I really appreciate that. And we became friends after.
Yeah, for sure. I'm waiting for that guy. And last time I squatted with him, he said he wanted to come out here and do an alligator hunt. I had it all set up with Robbie and everything. I was like, hey, KC Eusebio wants to come and do an alligator hunt. And so, Robbie's like, I'm waiting, man, whenever.
Yeah.
So Casey, if you're listening, if you ever find this show, your alligator hunt is waiting.
I'll send it to him whenever we finish.
There you go. So Staccato, it's so interesting to me because I've, having competed for a while, I knew of STI, right? And coming up, and the whole thing with STI, clearly that was the brand for competitors. Mm-hmm. They made a bunch of different open guns. They made a bunch of different limited guns, single stack guns, all of this, under the brand of STI. And then they kind of disappeared for a little bit to completely rebrand themselves to Staccato and come out with essentially limb ops guns, right? 2011 9mm guns, and I don't think they make anything else anymore, right?
No, that's about it. They had like a model before, like I guess Taryn adopted the things like the Grandmaster, right?
Yeah,
I remember hearing that.
It's an STI.
Yeah, and I first heard it from like Taryn's stuff, like Grandmaster kits and different things. And like those guns were even before that. Like they had the model Grandmaster for the open guns. But kind of the story that, like, I guess we can talk about like the history, and you know more about the history than I do. Mm-hmm. But
well, there's a guy who could probably
tell us all about the history. But like we talk about this in the shop a lot because like people come in and they're like, oh, like how about these STIs? Like, are they going to stay around? Or how about these Staccatos? Sorry. Are they going to stay around? Like, I know they're a new company. Like, have they proven themselves and stuff? And I'm like, no, like this is not a new company.
Yeah.
Right. Like this is an older company that's been around for a long time. They have great customer service. They've always had great customer service, and you kind of told me some of that history before about it.
Sure.
Like with Strayer and Trip and stuff. So I'd like explain that to people. So like the S was from Strayer, the T was from Trip, and then the International, right?
Yeah.
Yep. So they had two different people, and they split off, and Strayer decided to go more custom and Trip more production, I guess.
Right.
And then after that, Trip, I think, like ended up selling the company to the members, I think, like the employees, like it was employee owned for a little while.
Right.
And then this guy that bought them out, was from Chase Bank, I believe. I met him at the Staccato event.
Oh, did you?
Before. Very nice guy, awesome guy, a very good business person.
Sure.
Obviously, like he ran Chase Bank. I think he was a VP or something like that. So he obviously knows business and knows how to grow a company. And I think he's done really well for Staccato and also really well for the gun industry itself. Like it's very difficult for just one gun company to like have that much impact on the whole gun community, but he definitely has. Like there's people that is not even into guns that he brought into the gun community because they wanted to know about this gun.
Sure.
Like that's how much branding he did,
Yeah.
right? And like how much advertising. And no other gun company I think's done the amount of advertising that he's done.
Yeah.
Which is really great. But yeah, then he bought it out and changed the name from STI to Staccato. And actually, the like month before they did that, I don't know if you remember, you were at the range. Remember that? And then the sales rep from them.
Oh, right.
She came in. Yeah, right. So like for y'all that are listening, JP was at the range just one day, just BSing, and I think we were talking about like guns or whatever. And all of a sudden, this lady walks in,
And her dad.
and yeah, her and her dad, and she's like, "Hey, I'm a sales rep for a Staccato. We used to be STI. We're about to change names, like we're about to make it public and everything. And we're looking for new dealers, and we're looking for really indoor ranges. That way, people can test these guns and test drive them, right? Because that's a big deal." So JP's like, "Oh, I know y'all. Like, sure, we can look at some guns." And she's like, "Oh, I have some ammo in the truck. Do y'all want to shoot?" And we're like, "Of course we want to shoot." So she goes out, she grabs like 5 different guns, she brings them all out, and it's like free ammo, right? So she grabs a few boxes. Me and JP pick up the guns, we start shooting, and like after I think one magazine, she turned to her dad and was like, "Go get all the ammo." So we shot I think like over 1,000 rounds that day, just like all of her ammo.
All of her ammo. No, I remember because they were standing behind us because I was like, oh, let me shoot the open gun.
Yeah.
Right. And they're like standing behind us, like, okay, well, this is how you do it. And then,
Yeah.
and then it's like, pow, 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 pow. And they're like, oh.
Like y'all know how to shoot guns. Like, yeah.
yeah. This gun in particular.
Yeah, this gun in particular.
I don't really
shoot these
care
guns.
about the rest of them. Like, give me this one. But yeah, I remember that. And actually, it's funny. That picture came up on my memories, like not maybe 3 or 4 days ago.
Really?
I was like, oh, yeah, look at that.
awesome.
And we look young.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, that was a few years ago, right whenever they switched over, and
I mean, it was like 2019, I think.
yeah, it was before COVID for sure.
Yeah.
And I remember I was like, yeah, man, I really like the guns, and I really want to be like a dealer for y'all, but like it's mainly to deal with competition shooters, and really at the time, all they offered was the open gun in 9 minor.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's like, and you could shoot 9 major out of it, but it was like there's not that many people shooting, open. Period. It was a carry optics division, right? That was the most popular, and then they stopped making 40 in limited. So it's like, well, competition shooters not going to shoot it, like use these guns. So I don't know if there's going to be a market for it. And sure enough, like prove me wrong, right? Like everybody loved it because they're expensive guns, but. I don't think that people are afraid to spend money if they're getting good quality stuff, and they are great quality guns, especially for the price that you're getting them for.
Yeah.
So yeah, it started blowing up, and then finally I tried to contact them again, and at that time they like couldn't keep up. Right. Like they're like, oh, we can't keep up with demand, and we're having troubles keeping up with dealers, so we're not adding any more dealers. Like I just call like the regular people, So like, yeah, we're not accepting new dealers, but as soon as we do, then we'll get in touch with you.
Right.
And then like a year down the road, I was helping teach a class for a U.S. Marshals group. And like these guys are like, people that people make movies about, right? Like those type of guys. And they ended up just now switching to Staccatos for the whole department.
Right.
And became friends with one of the guys, one of the instructors there that was taking the class. And he ended up retiring from U.S. Marshals, and he ended up working for Staccato, right?
Oh, no kidding.
Yep. So he was he's now their top trainer over there. His name is Mike. Mike, if you're listening, thank you again for everything.
Yeah.
But he like went over there and he invited us to this event. Him and Todd Jarrett actually called me and Blake and was like, "Hey,
Prairie Fire event."
Prairie Fire event. Yep. Yeah. So they were trying to launch this new pistol that they just had. Was the Staccato CS, like their new small compact gun. And the branding genius behind the company was like, hey, we're going to host this event where we're going to give away $100,000. right?
Yeah.
So it's like, man, $100,000. Like in USPSA, they never even come close to that. Like there's no prize money, there's nothing.
They don't even spend $100,000 on the match.
Yeah, and like this guy's just like, hey, we're gonna give away $100,000 for this competition, and we're like, well, what's the competition? Like, well, we don't really know yet. We're just gonna give it away. So we're like, all right, whatever it is, like we're in, right?
Yeah.
So Todd Jarrett calls us and is like, hey, like y'all need to like come to this event. We're trying to get some top shooters over here just to make it big and to like draw a bunch of crowd, and we want it to be a bunch of PR stuff, right?
Right.
So he invites us out, and we're like, all right, what do we have to do? He's like, well, you guys shoot this bullseye target at like 15 yards or whatever.
Oh yeah,
it might be.
yeah, that's right.
So me and Blake are like, man, like we don't shoot bullseye. He's like, no, it's easy. Just like go out there and put it and do a picture of it. You can qualify. So we go and do it, and obviously like we get it. So we send in the paperwork. He's like, all right, I got y'all on a squad, or I got y'all names put in, so y'all come out. So we drive all the way out there and start seeing this new pistol and everything. And JJ's ended up coming. Niels, they had a few other top shooters over there, and I ended up making it to the last round. Right before the steal, like the face off, I pulled Niels is who I ended up drawing for face off.
Right.
So it's like Niels ended up beating me, and then I got kicked out of there, and I think he came in second over the whole match.
He didn't win? I thought he won.
No. Yackley.
Okay. Yeah.
I forgot her name, but her son ended up winning.
Becky Yackley.
Yeah, Becky's son ended up winning.
No kidding.
Yep.
Wow.
Because it's not USPSA, right? It's like bullseye shooting, and then it turned into like steel, man-on-man steel.
Right.
So we ended up going into that, and Mike was over there.
Mm-hmm.
So while I was over there, he had just started, going full time with Staccato. And he's like, "Man, you need anything?" I was like, "Actually, I do." I was like, "I want to get a dealer with him." He's like, "Oh, I'm gonna put you in contact with the people right now." Right?
Oh, nice. Okay.
So went and put in contact with them, and the next week, I think he had a meeting with like the CEO of I met the CEO and everything, and the next week he had a meeting with them, and they're like, "Well, man, you're doing so much for us. Can we do you a favor for like doing so much for the company and stuff?" And Mike was like, "Yeah, actually, you can get my buddy Brandon to become a dealer." So that's how we became a Staccato dealer.
That's amazing.
Actually. Yep.
Yeah.
So they contacted us. We got in touch with the right people, and we're able to we're one of 2 dealers in Louisiana. They have very few dealers per state. Like they don't want to like overpopulate too many dealers.
Right.
So we're able to get one of the 2 dealers in Louisiana.
Nice. So that's how it happened.
That's how it happened.
There you go. So now you can get your Staccatos at Sentry Defense in Youngsville, Louisiana. I got to make up for all the plugs that I missed over the past like month.
Yeah.
People are like, "Are you guys?" People ask me like locally, like, "Are you not part of Sentry Defense?" I was like, "Of course I'm part of it." I always wear the shirts like in the like
all the other stuff.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's like no, I just get excited about the content and I forget to mention it. You know, but it's like, why do you think it's always Brandon and Austin? If you know, like so.
Than that.
Anyway, go to Sentry Defense, get your Staccato or plural Staccatos. Go get them. But back to this. I think that interestingly, if you look at the way Staccato did it, right. Or the investors to Staccato, the way they did it, I think they did it right because they bought a trusted, like the staple brand STI of competition, right? Yeah. And so what that got, it's like the pistol is already proven, you know? I mean, it had been proven for years. And,
and they were the creators of 2011.
Yeah.
Right? Like, STI was like Strayer and Tripp, they created it, so they know the whole entire thing around it.
I mean, they made the modular, they made the modular frame and everything. Yeah.
And then they, like the company was owned by the employees, which tells you like they're invested, right? So like if you buy a company from the employees like that, they're not going anywhere, right? And they believe in so much what they do. Like everybody that works there, like really wants the betterment for the gun. Yeah. Right. Because if they wouldn't own the company. Yeah. Right. So like them just doing that and wanting to keep the company surviving, I think was a great plan. Yeah. I think that was a great idea to buy out that company.
Well, for sure. And I mean, you think about it surprises me, I guess, from my perspective, for people who were asking, hey, do you think Staccato is going to stick around? It's like, if you knew what STI was, I mean, those guns, you've got to think, tens of millions of rounds. You know, maybe like it is conceivable that there are a billion rounds put through those platforms in the STI days, because that's a worldwide, you know, almost every open gun, right? Almost every limited gun
had those parts.
Was an STI, you know, and it was, and I put that number out there, a billion rounds, you know, because if you think about worldwide people shooting 2011s in the STI days, you know, these aren't just home plinkers, right? People who buy the STI were committed to the sport. They were practicing. You know, these people are probably putting 10 to 50,000 rounds through each of their guns. They had multiple guns. You know, they're practicing. They're wanting to get better. You know, and so the platform is proven, for sure.
And I think that's the biggest thing for like coming from production guns. Like, you know, I shot Glock pistols forever,
right?
And then like going to CZs and then going to 2011s now. The biggest thing for me is like the amount of rounds those guns can handle, right? Like Glocks, they have looser tolerances, so like out the box they will run, you know, flawlessly and everything will work perfectly. But like sooner or later they just walk out of that tolerance, right? Because the tolerance is just so loose, and then the gun just like stops working. Yeah, and it doesn't happen over, you know, a short period of time. It's like well over 100,000 rounds, and then the gun will like start just having looser tolerances and start rattling apart and things like that. Right. Whereas like if you get a custom built 2011 or like a really nice hand fitted gun, that gun, you just change like replacement parts, like, you know, springs and things like that. Yeah. And it's going to last almost forever, like until the barrel life's done.
I mean, look at my original open gun. Now my original open gun's an Infinity, you know,
which is the same gun.
It's the same, right? Like you know, that's same platform though, in a sense, right? It's the same modular 2011 body, everything. It's just,
and people that like don't know, like we talked about STI, like the Strayer part is, like whenever the company split off from Strayer and Trip, the Strayer part became SVI, which is Infinity. Right. Right. So like if you don't know how that came about, like that is the original people who built it.
Yeah. Right? Yeah. STI, the S of STI and the S of SV are the same S, right? Same S. Sandy Strayer, the Strayer family. You know, and yes, right. So I you know, my Infinity gun, I mean, I don't know how many 100,000 plus rounds for sure. Yeah. And it's still, you know, I was telling you the other day that I was shooting it in practice, you know, so now that gun is my backup gun, right? And I have another, you know, Infinity match gun, but that other gun, I mean, it still goes, you know, I mean,
it still runs.
I'll put it, you know, just to make sure, you know, it still groups and everything in case I need it. Yeah. I mean, my body, like the way I shoot, it's still actually a little bit better on the old platform.
You're just used to it more.
Yeah, and it's got, I mean, that gun literally, I mean, it probably 150, you know, between the two different barrels, the two different kits that I have, it's still going.
And it's my backup gun too.
It is, yeah.
Like, whenever I go to matches, I can only have one open gun. So whenever I go to matches, I use his backup open gun, because it's the same gun pretty much that Eddie built me. Yeah. So my gunsmith is Eddie Garcia, and like I think he builds probably the best, you know, open gun 2011 type gun. But he's like a one guy thing. It's not like a shop or anything. You know.
And we need to have a show on that, because there's a difference, right?
Yeah,
so
there's
like,
a difference.
I think there are two heavyweights in the open division, right? There's SV and then there's Eddie. Yeah. And I think they're the same, but they're like both number one for different reasons. Yep. You know?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. And like I think that people, and quick story, like whenever you had first sold that gun, I shipped a gun for you. I don't know if you remember that SVI limited gun.
Oh yeah.
So
before that went to Brent Wally in Florida. He still has it, I think. Yeah.
So like I had met JP like one time. He came into the shop and like bought a membership, and then like the next week I get this gun that's at the shop, and I walk in, and they're like, "Yeah, you gotta ship this for a guy named JP Garcia." And I'm like, "Oh, I think he was here last week." So like I open it up and I see this like 2011. It looks like a 1911 to me at the time, because I didn't know what 2011s was. Yeah. And I look at the price tag and I forgot how much it was. It was $6,000 or something.
Yeah, I think I sold it to him $6,500 or something like that.
So like I looked at,
sorry, Brett.
I was like, man, like look how, like, what idiot would buy a gun for $6,500? Like, because at that time, like all I knew was like Glock pistols, and like the high end market was like Wilson and Nighthawk. Right. I thought that was the best of the best, right? Like I thought that was, your like top end part, and they're like $3,500, right?
Yeah.
Like top end. So I'm like, man, who in the hell would pay double the amount for a Wilson, get this gun? Like,
Yeah.
you know, this guy's an idiot. And then later on, like a year goes by and like I start knowing you more and start getting more exposed to the competition market. I'm like, that was a pretty good deal.
Yeah.
Because like those guns are now even more than that.
Yeah.
I'd say like a limited gun. I mean, brand new, if you can get them, right? Because that's the problem. It's like 75 or so.
Yeah,
So
easy.
you save 1,000. And then on the used market, they usually go for more than the new market because you can't purchase them. Like at that time, it was like a 12-month wait time.
No, it was more than that.
18?
It was 18 months. At
18
least.
months. Yeah, so like people, they don't understand that. They see a Staccato on the shelf and they're like, oh, I can buy it right now. It's like, yeah, with a custom built gun, you can't do that.
Right.
Right. So like that's why if a gun costs 10,000, people will pay 12,000 for it.
Yeah.
Because they can get it right now.
Yeah.
Right. Like even if it's used.
Yeah.
So in that market. So I always like to explain them like cars, right? Like you have like your top end, like you have your regular guns, Glock, SIGs, things like that. And you have like top end versions of that. Then you have like the Wilson Combats and stuff. And people think that's the highest end. And it's like, no, that would be more like a Ferrari.
Yeah.
Right. Like STIs or Staccatos and Wilson Combats and Nighthawk, all those, they're all hand fit guns, right? Like there's one gunsmith that's going to be putting them together. They're going to hand fit the barrel. They're going to work. They're like a Ferrari, right? But then you have like going from Ferrari to like a Bugatti, I guess you could say,
right? Or even like, an F1 racer.
Yeah, F1 racer. Like you have a really nice vehicle, but then you have a custom built vehicle that you have to place on order from the manufacturer, and that's the only way you're going to get it. And the price jumps from 300,000-400,000 to $1 million.
Yeah.
Right. Like
exactly.
that's what it does. It doubles.
Yeah.
And that's whenever you get into like a one gunsmith that's going to build you a custom gun like Eddie or Johnny Lim or like, that guy Venom Customs.
Yeah.
Is another
he's
one.
very good.
Yep. Rafferty, Pat Rafferty.
Yeah.
He's another good one.
Who's Max's guy was Bedell. Dan Bedell.
Yep.
Yeah.
So like you get guys like that, or you get Infinity, which is like a company, but they're also like on that same level. That's the only one I would say that's on that level.
So the difference between Infinity and I would say like Eddie, right? Because I love both of those guys, right?
Yeah.
Is that Brandon Strayer has like he has a whole factory to build specific parts just for the Infinity gun. None of them are STI parts or Staccato parts now, right?
Yeah.
They're all Infinity made. He makes everything to the screws. He has a whole shop, and employees to do all of that. But at the end of the day, Brandon is still the one who he's the quality control. He's the one who's doing the final fitting,
He's the guy that checks off on it.
Absolutely. And so he's the one he's the one tuning the triggers. He's the one doing all of that stuff. So it's not like the advantage that Brandon has on the other folks, in my opinion, is that he has all of the machining to create exactly what he wants in the gun. Whereas somebody like Eddie, he doesn't have that infrastructure. And so he gets the parts, he's the master of taking all of the parts that are available in the market and building a gun that is that is essentially F1 worthy, right? That's race worthy. Brandon Strayer has all of this infrastructure to build exactly where he wants, right? So for example, what's your barrel length? It's like 5 inches or something like that. I don't know, but yeah, no. But
I just shoot the guns, and then anything goes wrong with it, I call him. Sure. Hey, this is what's going on. So he sends me parts.
yeah. But no, I say that. So I think the standard back in the day when I paid attention to it was like 5 inches or 6 inches barrel, right?
Yeah, I think that it's a 5 inch, but he cuts it down to make the comp and all that stuff.
Yeah. And then so Brandon Strayer has machines that build him at like a 5.4 inch barrel, like 5.4 specific, right? Or whatever it is now. I don't even know.
Yeah.
But that's the difference. It's like he has a complete factory to build most of the tolerances in. I mean, they're very tight guns.
Yeah.
And then so he has that machining to build that precision in. And what Eddie does is that he buys all of the parts oversized and he hand does everything.
Yep. Because I remember, you remember whenever I got my gun.
Yeah.
I mean, and you can still see the lines of my gun, like where the island barrel is, it just matches. You can't even see there's a crease there.
Absolutely.
If it wasn't two different colors, you could not tell there was a crack there.
Yeah.
It's insane. And I remember right whenever I first got it, he's like, look, Brandon, you're going to have to oil this thing. And I left for nationals like 2 days after I got it. Right? Remember that?
Yeah,
like,
oh, yeah.
Blake was like, you're an idiot. I cannot believe you're doing this. You never go to a gun, to a match with like a brand new gun. You know, I was like, dude, that's the only gun I got. Like, I'm doing it. And it worked. It ran. It ran great. You know, awesome gun. Like Eddie overnighted me mags and stuff for it. Like, you know, hats
I remember
off to
he used
him.
his mags. Yeah,
dude, like awesome customer service. And he just called me yesterday and just to like shoot the shit and was like, hey, like, how's the gun running? Everything's good. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. He's like, as long as I don't hear from you, I know that everything's good.
Yeah.
It's like, yep. You'll know if something's not. But he told me, overnight me his personal mags that like Bevan Graham tuned himself, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because I had like MBX mags and they wouldn't work in the gun.
Yeah.
Because for some reason, right? It's just different things. And he's like, no, you got to use STI mags, STI bodies.
Yeah.
So he like overnighted me from Arizona. I don't know what it would cost, but he like overnighted me mags, his personal ones. It was like, just use them for the nationals match and return them whenever you have a chance.
Right.
And so it's like, man, that's awesome customer service. And that's what I want from my gunsmith, right?
Yeah.
And that's usually the problem with getting like a custom built gun is number one, you can't buy it because these guys, the really good guys, they're all booked out for 3 or 4 years, right? Like, it's like, oh, you want a gun? Okay, wait 3 years and then I'll maybe think about building you one.
Yeah.
Right. And then after that, it's like, once you get the gun, will they support it?
Right.
So it's like, can you pick up the phone and call that guy? Because he's the only one that knows about that gun. Like, you can't call another gunsmith and be like, hey, what did you do here? Because every one of them's a little bit different, right?
Yeah.
They make the gun differently. So it's like, can you call him and say, hey, this is my problem and I need this part changed because I have a match tomorrow.
Right.
And that's what I like about Eddie a lot. 'Cause like, he's a GM also and he competes, right? So it's like, you go to a match and he's there. It's like, oh, my gunsmith's here, right? And like, he can work on my gun or I can shoot his gun, you know, like whatever it might be. So I really like that part of it. But yeah, I definitely think there's going back to like the different types of guns is people think like those production style guns are like top quality, like they are top quality, but they think they're like top of line, but it's like a matter of how many units they're making. Yeah. Right. Like STI makes probably 1,000 guns a day. Yeah. Right. Or the guy told us what they made in a month. Like it was a couple thousand a month. Right. Eddie makes 20 guns a year.
Exactly.
Right. So it's like, it's a completely different thing. It's all hand fitted stuff. And like you said, oversized and it's custom built for the end user. It's like, hey, I want this safety. I need it trimmed to my hand this way because I can't reach the mag button or I can't do this. Like that's all set to that shooter.
Yeah. Well, and that's that's the same treatment I got from Brandon over at Infinity. You know, when I went, I was actually on my way to a 3-gun match. Right. And I think I've told you the story before. I was going to a 3-gun match in Tulsa and Infinity had sponsored our major match that we had in Houston. Right. And so I went over, I wanted to meet him and thank him for being our sponsor and all of that stuff. And, I end up going in there, meeting him. He starts showing me a bunch of stuff. It's like, okay, here's what we do. He's like, okay, here's a grip. Here, try this grip, try this other grip. Like, and what we would do with the customer is figure out which one you like. And then, okay, now here's a different trigger bow. We put it in and then boom. Okay, now your trigger finger has to be a certain angle. So you need a different one. So you change it out real quick and put it in. Okay, now this is correct. And then
what you didn't know was that you were building your gun right there.
I was totally
he like got you.
No, I know. And at the end of it, it's like, I guess just make it.
Yeah, he's like, here's the bill. You're like, wait, what just happened right there?
Oh no,
I just got bamboozled.
I did, yeah. But it was like a happy bamboozling, man. I'm like the biggest Infinity fan for sure. Yep. So, but it's the same level, right? And and you've seen where I've broken stuff, right? And so all guns break, even Infinities, definitely. Even Staccatos will break, right? But the nice thing is that I send it into SVI and just, okay, here I broke this grip, or whatever, and then he comes back, it's like, what else I did this, you needed to do this, so I did this for you, and blah 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 blah, right? And there are like cost of parts, and I paid for the parts and stuff like that. But I mean, the fact that he just didn't do the replacement, he's like, I know you compete. I know you do this type of thing. So you actually, to keep this running at the level you want it, here are the things you have to do. Right. And we did them, and, there are a lot of parts that, of course, I paid for some of it, but then some of them he was just like, okay, here you go, boom, and that's it.
Warranty.
Absolutely. And and I don't want to put that out there just to say that you can send everything into Infinity and get free parts. That's not what I'm saying.
Right.
But there were parts that they definitely stand behind.
I'd be
stuff.
comfortable with saying, like, if it's a manufacturer's issue, there's no doubt in my mind he would warranty.
100%.
And
100%.
I think every gun company or every gunsmith would do that. Like, if it's your fault, like if you break it, then they're going to charge you for it, right? I would charge you for it. But like if it's something that their part failed because like it was a issue in the metal or something like that, they're going to warranty that.
Yeah, for sure.
They probably wouldn't charge you.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. Most of the stuff that I've done was like user error. Yeah. But even still, like, oh, here.
Yeah, it's kind of like,
here's stupid. Don't do it again.
Don't do it again. Yep.
So we went on a tangent. We're going back. So but I guess this is to show that the platform of the 2011 is proven, I think, beyond a shadow of a doubt. So for the people who are looking at Staccato and have a doubt about the 2011 platform, like this thing has been around forever.
And I kind of want to like touch, like right whenever I got my gun, I was saying like Eddie called me, he's like, hey, you're gonna have to oil this thing, right? And it was built so tight that like I had to oil it and then shoot like 10 rounds. And as I would shoot the 10 rounds, like you'd see the first round like fly like 3 feet. And then as it kept going, like closer to 10th round, it would barely trickle out the gun because the slide was slowing down because the oil was throwing it, like the gun was throwing the oil out and it was squeezing all the oil out of the gun, right? So like I'd have to oil it every magazine pretty much.
Wow.
And just to kind of get the gun to break in. And so the people that are looking like, oh, well, I don't want a Staccato now, I want a custom built gun. It's like, no, you don't want that. Like if you want a custom built gun, the people in the industry and you know exactly what you want. Right. So you're going to call them and like, hey, this doesn't do it anymore. This is exactly what I need. Right. So it's like, if you don't know what you want, then you don't want a custom built gun.
You don't.
It's too much headache and like you don't know all the different parts to replace. I think you're much better off just like buying a Staccato and being done, right? And you don't have to worry about it because those guns are super reliable. Like out the box, they always talk about break-in periods and stuff. Like I've never had one that I sold that like had any issues with it out the box. Like they run. You keep them oiled and they're good to go.
For sure. Actually, going off of that, where you don't know exactly what you want, and you're buying an open gun, right? So this happened this week, and I haven't told you about this yet, but Dewey from the club. Oh yeah, he's looking for an open gun. Oh yeah, and I was like, oh man, I love the guy and I love, Infinity and Eddie, but I'm like, you don't want to get into that arena yet. And so we kept talking and he brought up Masterpiece. I'm like, you know what? Masterpiece is a fit. Yep. That'd be good. And so, because it's like an entry level. It's not, they're not a tight fitting gun like an Eddie gun or a Infinity gun.
Are you going to have problems with it? Yes, but you can learn what you need to do. To do it
at half the price.
Yep, at half the price. Yep.
And they're good guns. There are a lot of people who shoot them in competition. They're not the like high flying, $10,000 gun that you would expect, but it's like but they're reliable. They go. Yes, you have to do more maintenance to them. Yep. But that for him is like that's a fit for you.
Like that's the people that like probably get called, like Eddie gets calls from and it's like, no, I'm not building your gun because they don't know, they can't tell him any answers, right? He's like, hey, I need to know this, this, and this. And they're like, well, I don't know.
Yeah. What's your load? What do you do? Like, all of this stuff, like what are your preferences?
It's not worth his time to go through all that.
Exactly.
Like he's too busy with doing other stuff.
Yeah. So. Yeah. Absolutely. So anyway, they're even within the custom guns, there are levels, right? And levels. I think if you don't know, if you don't know what you want or you're kind of just getting into it, either look at the used market or, you start to look at stuff like MPA and some of the other folks. I don't know. Atlas isn't building open guns anymore or anything.
I think they do like limited runs of them.
So maybe something like that.
Yeah, where it's Atlas would be, I guess like a custom built gun, but they're still like almost like a factory to where like they're more affordable, I guess.
Yeah.
Yep. So that'd be a good option.
Anyway, rolling back, we're supposed to talk about Staccato.
Yeah, so Staccatos. So going back to they're super reliable guns, and I think like we have a rental gun, and it's filthy, and just like all the other rental guns, but that thing keeps running and doesn't stop. And I've seen some of them, like law enforcement, starting to use them now, and a lot of those guys, like they don't have the greatest maintenance typically on guns because they, going through mud and everything else, using them for like duty use.
Yeah.
And I think that they are a duty gun. Like I would say that they're just as reliable as any other gun out there.
Yeah.
It's not like the old production style 1911s where they always had problems.
Right.
Like this is out the box, you're ready to go.
Well, I think the thing to keep in mind is that, when people compare the 2011, the Staccato 2011, whatever the model is, right, to like a Glock 19 or a Glock 17, right? The old, staple, this is a gun that'll go forever, in a sense, right? And so let me first define forever, because forever for a lot of people is like 50,000 rounds.
Yeah.
And that's okay. Yes, if you get a Glock and all you're ever going to do in your lifetime is shoot 50,000 rounds, you will never need to buy another gun. Yep. That's for sure, right?
Most people shoot less than 10.
Correct. Yeah. And so, and the fact that it's like, and it's a fair comparison where people say that why would people go with a more complicated, more expensive gun, when you could buy, what's a Staccato P? It's like $2,600.
Yeah, 25, 26.
Yeah, so $2,600 versus you buy a Glock 17 for like $800.
Yes,
right?
639.
Oh, six. Okay, yeah, there you go. So I don't know.
Ready, 639.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, there's a huge difference there, but you get what you pay for in a sense. But people are asking like, well, why would you need that, right? Yeah. So, and I think it's twofold, right? So first, it's that it's clear that that 2011s, not just Staccato, but 2011s in general, are much easier to shoot. Yeah. And I shouldn't say much easier to shoot. What I mean is that the trigger system will forgive a lot of bad marksmanship sins. Right? Because the trigger is so light compared to the Glock trigger that it makes it an easier gun to shoot. It's a heavier gun, so the recoil is more controllable. Not that a Glock is not controllable, clearly it is, but it's there, right? Like there is a stark difference between the triggering systems between those two.
Yeah, you have like it's a different action, right? So like striker fired action, whenever you press trigger, it's actually cocking back the firing pin under spring tension and then letting it go,
right?
Dropping, right? So like it's like double action gun, what it truly is. Whereas on 2011, it's a single action gun. So the only thing that happens whenever you press the trigger is the hammer's gonna fall. Right. The sear slips and the hammer falls. That's it. Right. So it doesn't have to cock the hammer. So it's going to be a whole lot lighter. It's going to be a whole lot more forgiving because if you move a little bit, it has less time for you to move the gun. Right. As you press back the trigger. So yeah, it is a lot easier to shoot that gun. And I've noticed like you put a Glock pistol in someone's hand and they're shooting like all low left. Like you put a Staccato in their hand, they're still shooting low left, but it's like very small distance. It's not like 3 inches off. It's an inch off, right? So you still have bad habits and you still need to correct those habits. And it's not like the end all be all like, hey, I just purchased this gun and now I'm an expert shooter. No, it doesn't work that way.
Right.
But it's more forgiving, I would say.
Yeah.
And then the other main difference, I think, in the price point is just accuracy based. Like a production Glock pistol, SIG pistol, Smith & Wesson, like whatever type of gun that is, they're like 3 inches at 25 yards.
Right.
Like that's the standard. That's what every gun like has to pass. That's what military requires their guns to pass. It's like a tennis ball at 25 yards.
Yeah.
Whereas on a Staccato, like I tell this story all the time, like whenever I first started shooting 2011s or started competing, I was shooting CZs, the shadows. And I remember at me and Blake were zeroing guns and I had a target out at 25 yards and I was shooting 2-inch groups, right?
Yeah.
And got the gun zeroed, and he's like, man, this gun's not as accurate. Like, these guns must not be great, right? I was like, dude, what are you talking about? Like, that's a 2-inch group. Like, Glocks get 3 inches, and SIGs get 3 inches, like, and you'd be content. So this is an inch less. Like, this is very tight group.
Right.
This is awesome. And he's like, no. He's like, they should be stacking. Like, the round should be touching all at 25 yards. I'm like, dude, whatever. He's like, I'm telling you. He's like, my 2011s do it. Yeah. So sure enough, like whenever I switch over to 2011s, he's right. Like, if my rounds are not touching at 25 yards, like if I'm zeroing the gun, like I'm shipping the gun back. Yeah. Like there's a problem. Like this gun is not built correctly, so I need to bring it back.
Now that's off a rest.
And let's be off a rest clear, and like targeting. It's not just like free. There's people that can do it.
Yeah. They live here.
Yeah, they live here.
And we train with them every now and then.
They can do it, but like it's off of arrest, and like that's what the gun's capable of,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So like that's what you're paying for. It's like a hand fit barrel thing, and Staccato's very capable of it. Like every gun that they sell, they have a target in the bag, and they test fire that gun, and they'll show you the target for it, right?
Yeah.
And all the rounds are usually touching.
Sure. Yeah.
And it's at I want to say they do it at 20 yards, but
Probably
still same thing. Yeah. Yep.
And a lot of that, I mean, if you're not having that that performance, part of it is ammo.
It is ammo, 100%. Yeah.
So,
and because those guns are capable of it. So if you're not getting that, it's either user error or ammo.
Right.
Like one of the two. Get somebody else to shoot it, and then get really good, like self-defense ammo or like hand-loaded ammo.
Right.
You know.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's counterintuitive because you'd think that, production ammo from a big company is going to be the most accurate, and and a lot of times it can be, but if you're buying stuff that's like the cheapest that's available, the Winchester white box or whatever, it's like those ammo companies are loading that particular brand for folks who are just practicing.
Yeah, it's like
right?
plinking ammo.
Yeah, exactly. And the difference is that people aren't paying that close of attention to, okay, is how does it is it the bullet tall or shorter? How much powder is actually going into it? Because those we have an ammo company, and we know that there's a certain tolerance that you can have. You can have a variance with the powder that like, okay, sure, this is not going to blow up the gun, but if you have a little bit more or a little bit less, then it's going to affect how that goes. And so the more precise that they can be loading that ammo, the more it's going to cost. Right. And then, but also that the more accurate it's going to be.
Yep.
So, a lot of it is feeding the correct ammo through it. And that's going to be with any gun, Yep. So, because if you have crap ammo, you shoot it through a Glock at 25 yards, it's going to be 8 inches, an 8-inch group versus if the same ammo, and we've seen it with our loads, right? And we'll tune loads, through Skill Builder ammo that it's just like, okay, we just put it on the rest, the ransom rest at the end of the range. And it's like, okay, let's see this group, and you'll start to see that tighten up just based on, how much powder we're putting in it.
Exactly.
So, so I guess going back to Staccato, that, yes, absolutely they'll hold a group way out, to that. They'll hold a group more than what you could hold offhand, right? In a sense, it's like you will never be able to outshoot the gun,
right?
Yep. And I think that's super good. Good to know.
And some people, it doesn't matter. Like that's another thing. It's like, what are you capable of? Because people's like, oh, well, like I need that, but yet they can't like hold a group at 7 yards. Right. So it's like, no, you don't really need that. Like a Glock pistol is plenty enough for you. But like, we'll notice it at the stuff that we do. Cause there'll be a mini popper at, let's say 20 yards or so. And you come in on a mini popper. Well, if I'm shooting a production gun, and I'm not waiting for the dot to settle, like the dot's coming in. And if I'm off by 2 inches, it's still, but like the gun's off by 2 inches to the left also, then it's off by 4 inches, right? And it's missing the mini popper.
Right.
Whereas like on an open gun, I can get away with a whole lot more because I know the gun's on. Right. So like if I'm off by 2 inches, it's still hitting 2 inches on the mini popper.
Right.
It's not missing the mini popper by 4 inches.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
Like the gun's always going to be exactly where it needs to be.
Yeah.
So it's much more forgiving, and that's why like open division is so much more faster. Than anything else, because the guns are. People's like, oh, well, you can only go that fast because like you're shooting this gun. And it's like, no, everybody has this gun, right? Like, so the competition is much harder now because everybody, like, you can't blame the equipment. You can't be like, oh, the gun's off a little bit. No, everybody has the best gun. So it's really like skill based at that time.
No, and I think it's, one thing that we've always talked about with these types of, the 2011 platform, and I won't name our buddy, but we have a buddy who, a great shooter. And, from switching from a 2011 platform to more of a production style platform, I feel like that became a hindrance to him.
Because he's that good.
Because he's that good. And it's like, and a lot of folks are like, well, this guy fell off and he's not, whatever. It's like, no, you don't understand. Now you go from shooting a gun that's essentially a laser at 50 yards, to something that's almost like a shotgun. Right. and it's
Dude, like,
hard.
We a while back, Blake had some issues with his like guns that he had. So he put out his World Shoot guns that were built by Dave Dawson, who's on the board for Staccato, right? So that's another great thing about Staccato is like all the people they have, and I'll touch on that a little bit later.
Yeah.
But pulled out those guns, and Dave was the best gun builder forever. Like now you just can't get him to build you a gun.
Right.
But like we took those guns out and grouped them, and at 50 yards, they were hitting 4 inches.
Yeah.
Like a 4-inch group at 50 yards. Like that's laser
amazing.
beam, you know, with iron sights. Like it's insane. And they were in the safe for 10 years, and he shot World Shoot with them. I don't know how many rounds have been through those guns.
Right.
And they've just been sitting there, and they're still laser beams. Like, so it goes to show you like how accurate that design is, like the whole 2011 design.
Right.
But that's another thing that makes Staccato great is like all the people that are on the board. Like Eddie's helped him out before. He's told me that. Dave Dawson lives like 5 minutes away from Staccato. Like he drives this Ranger to the ranch and then back, right?
Yeah.
So like, and he has a lot to do with that company. He's the guy that like pretty much designed like the CS pistol and all that stuff. There's like Todd Jarrett's still there. He's been around the thing for a while. Like David Cupp, remember David Cupp? Like worked for STI, like with Standy and Trip and all them.
Virgil
like
Tripp.
He's still there. He's still at the company.
Yeah.
Like still building guns. Like,
That's amazing.
So you get a company that has people like that are that dedicated and that invested into that platform, you're going to have good guns.
Yeah.
And that's the hardest thing. Like look at any other gun manufacturer. The problem is like the people that are putting them together, they don't care.
Yeah.
Right. It's just like a job. It's a factory worker. Right. Whereas like that company's not that way.
Right.
Like these people are in the gun community and they're like, I want to see the gun become better and my name's on that gun. That's how they feel.
Yeah.
Right. So they're invested.
No, I think, I mean, we keep talking about it, but yeah, I mean, the fact that, you know, they have so many rounds through them, they have such a history with the old STI, you know, and now, you know, they're really, and to be fair, STI, you know, they had all calibers from 9 all the way to 45, you know, and now they're just focused on 9. Yeah. They took that whole platform and put it just into 9mm. So it's like they took, you know, they took the least, the round with the least impact to the gun and have essentially a gun that can, you know, that can hold, that'll hold up a major power factor, which is, you know, a huge explosion, right? And I mean, it's a tank, you know, it's a tank shooting a 22, right?
I mean, like open guns are the same exact platform, and those rounds are going like 1,400 feet per second, right? Like a 9mm or 38 Super Comp, same bullet, but it's going 1,400 feet per second, and then you chamber it down to like 9 minor, which is going at 1,000 or 900
at the most.
Like usually people are shooting 147 grain. They're going at 900 feet per second, right? Like that gun's gonna last forever. Yeah. Like because Eddie's told me around like 75,000, you'll start seeing some groups open up. Yeah. Just because it's that much speed that's going through an open gun. Right. And 75,000 rounds is a lot of rounds. Right. So you get 9 minors, that gun's gonna last double that at least. You know,
well, and that's my 9 major barrel. My 9 major barrel on my Infinity, my first Infinity gun. It's starting to walk out.
Yeah,
right?
I believe it.
Yeah, but my Super Comp gun, I mean, it
hasn't had that many rounds.
Right, exactly. Yeah, because I practiced mostly 9 major. You know, I mean, you know, we talk about like 100+ thousand rounds through it. Like most of that was 9 major because that's what I wanted to shoot then. And the barrel started to walk out a little bit. So I'm not, you know, one of the reasons why I'm not using it anymore, but you know, that Super Comp barrel.
Or not for a match, you know?
Not for a match. Yeah.
And I've zeroed that gun before a match, like just to make sure it's zeroed. Yeah. And it's been all within a paster. Yeah. So on the 38 Super Comp barrel.
For sure.
You know?
Yeah. Which that's all it is now. I don't even know where the 9 barrel is anymore.
Yeah, it just stays there.
It's in the safe somewhere. But so yeah, I think so. Point is, yes, so Staccato, super reliable. It's a platform you can trust. It's tried and true. The one thing that I will say is that, you know, when you move from something like a Glock or something that's, you know, like a looser fitting gun, like you say, right, that is more meant for beating up, right? And you move towards something that's like a Staccato and, you know, in that $2,600 price range, you know, the one thing I would caution people is that you have to be on top of maintenance a little bit more, right?
Because for sure, keeping the gun wet.
Yes.
Like, that's the big thing. It's like Glocks will run dry and like with no oil in them, they'll usually run for a pretty good. I mean, it's not good for them, but they'll run for a lot longer. Whereas like on 2011s, it's just like an AR-15. Like you have to keep the gun oiled.
Right.
Like if it's not oiled, you're going to start having issues with it. And then they're like, oh, well, the gun's not reliable. It's like, no, it's you didn't do your part.
Yeah. When's the last time you cleaned it?
Yeah. Yep.
You know,
and not even clean. Like the Staccato I have on the shelf, like it's dirty, it's filthy.
Sure.
But we oil it like, once every week or once every other week. We just put some oil on it, and it'll sling off a lot of the carbon. Sure. Now, it's not great for the gun. It'll probably start opening up the gun because it acts as like lapping compound and stuff.
Right.
But the gun still runs.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but I mean, and that's, the other thing to keep in mind is that there are more parts to the 2011 than there are to the Glock. So there are, yes. I mean, a lot of my buddies, military guys, who, like, oh, there are more parts, more points of failure. Yes. But if you maintain it, and if you're actually, on top of, keeping it oiled, keeping it clean, you don't have to clean it don't clean your gun every time you go shoot it. No, don't do that. Unless you're shooting 3,000 rounds in a session. Yeah. Right. Okay. Then go clean it and go change out your springs and stuff if you need to. But, I mean, barring that, I mean, so long as you just keep, like you say, you keep it oiled, you're going to have to do it more than the Glock. Yeah. You just are.
Yep.
Right. And I think that's, that's the main thing is that if you go, when you're starting to move to that platform, there is maintenance that comes with it that you don't have in the Glock. Right. And that's why we're comparing Staccato to Glock, because that's a lot of what I see a lot of people comparing to. Why would you go, for a $2,600 gun when you can get it for, $650 or whatever? Yep. And I get it. But, what you're getting is the accuracy. You're getting the nicer trigger, that kind of thing. Yeah. And if that's important to you, then yes, by all means, but there is a little bit of trade-off there, right? I mean, clearly the price is higher, and there is more maintenance that's associated with that, right? Yeah. So, and now going to, taking this into competition, right? Because everything's going to revolve around competition at the end of the day. There are a lot of folks who are looking at, and from the club, and I'm not going to name you, but you know who you are. And I'm sure this is the clubs across the nation and competitors across the nation who are saying, okay, JP Brandon, you just said that the trigger is better. You just said that it's easier to shoot. And, then why shouldn't I buy the Glock or buy the Staccato, for competition, right? And then to me, I'm going to say you should buy what you want and shoot whatever you want, right? But, the Staccato is, if you look at the divisions and where it's going to sit, it's not going to make you, it's not going to immediately put you from C class to B.
No, it won't increase your handicap. Now, right. I do think if you want to get into limited optics, then that's the gun to get.
Well, certainly.
Right? There's people that are using, production optics or what's the carry optics?
They're using carry optics.
Yeah, they're using carry optics gun in limited optics. I'm like, what are you doing?
You're a GM in carry op.
Yeah,
you forgot the division.
I forgot the division. So I was like, yeah, what's that division again?
So this is what happens, people. If you buy an open gun, you forget about everything else.
Forget about all this stuff.
So yeah,
it's just open. That's the only division.
There is only one division.
It's fast division.
That's right.
But, yeah, so they're using carry optics guns in limited optics, and it's no, you're behind the curve there. You're not comparing apples to apples.
Correct.
And that's where, I do think it's going to make a difference because we talked about the accuracy, right? You cannot expect a production gun to have the same accuracy as Staccato. So
Correct.
Go ahead and buy the Staccato. Yeah. But for you to say oh, I'm a C class in carry optics and I want to go up to B class, the gun's not going to be the thing.
The gun's not going to take you there.
No. It's going to be the ammo in the gun that you already have.
And also, it's like the practice ammo that you're going to put through it. That's what ammo. It's more reps and actually focusing on fundamentals, right? Yes, of course, the gun triggering system may make you more accurate, but it's not gonna.
But everybody else in that division has the same gun,
absolutely,
right? Just like we said before. So it's now you can't blame the gun. So everybody's on the same playing field,
right?
So you're not going to increase in skill level in that division because everybody else is too.
Exactly,
right? Everybody's on the same field, and that's what a lot of people getting into the sport. they don't understand is like if they think they can buy their way into success, that's what they're wanting in the sport.
Yeah.
They're like, well, I want to have an open gun and I want everybody else to have a production gun. It's like, well, guess what? It doesn't work that way.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like the second that they approve of these rules, and that was a big thing a couple of years ago. It's like, well, why are they approving this rule and that rule? Like, and the people that were standing behind it, like, oh yeah, I want this in the gun.
Yeah.
And they were thinking that nobody else would have it.
Yeah.
Like they would be the only ones to have this trigger in the gun.
Right.
And everybody else would have to be that. It's like, no, everybody's going to have it. Like, what don't you understand?
Yeah.
If they approve it, everyone's going to go out and buy it. And then now we're all back at the same playing field.
Exactly.
Right? So all you're doing is moving that division to open division.
Exactly.
Is you're getting closer to that division.
Well, and that's and that's why, like, looking at USPSA politics for a second, just for a quick second, whenever they started carry op and they didn't use the production rules for it, then it's like, in my head, I'm like, well, you already have open minor. And then people are making the argument, oh, well, it's really not. And then it's like, yeah, no. But then you look, now they do have limited ops. It's like, now we're even closer to open minor, right?
Yeah, that's open minor.
And then so it's like, what is happening is that the divisions are moving more closer to open, and it's like, okay, well,
And I like that they have different divisions. And I really like the open minor idea behind it, but like there has to have something that breaks it, right?
Yeah.
Because like people are like, oh, well, let's put comps on the guns. And it's like, no, like you can't put a comp on an open minor gun, like because then like it's just open division, right?
Yeah,
like
you're in open.
Or they're like, oh, let's take major out of open, and it's like, no, like we're just making one big division, like
right.
I agree that they should be different things, and hopefully they have nationals at different times to where the same people can compete.
Absolutely.
Right. That way you can really see who's better, and it just gives you more options to shoot. That's all it does.
Yeah.
But the gun's not going to make you a better shooter.
No. And going back to our local guys, like, if you want a 2011, buy a 2011 because you want it, but be upfront about that. Hey, I want a 2011
because I want to compete in a different division.
Correct.
Or I want to go to handgun nationals that are limited optics.
Correct.
Like, okay, then go buy a Staccato.
Yeah. But if you think that the gun is going to make you better, the gun is not going to make you better. Well, the gun may improve your specific. Or it may hide, like we were talking about earlier, it may hide some of your bad habits because the trigger is so good, but from a fundamental standpoint, it's not going to make you better. Right. You're still going to be the same shooter. You're still going to have the same, whatever, strengths and weaknesses. And the only way to get out of those is to practice.
Yep.
Right. Get training, practice.
And sometimes it's a good thing to like kind of get out of a rut.
Yeah.
Right. So like if you're stuck in a rut and you're like, hey, I can't see this, but then you go into a gun like that and you start shooting it, and all those skills that you learn on that gun, like even if it's a bigger gun or a full size gun, is going to cross over into your concealed carry gun or your duty gun or whatever it might be. So if it gets you to the range more and you're like, hey, like if I buy this gun, I really enjoy going to the range. I enjoy shooting it. I have a small success victory, then go and buy the gun.
Right.
Like I see that all the time too. Like we had a couple come into the range the other day, and guy had a couple Glocks that were like, custom Glocks or so, like different trigger jobs and stuff to it. And it was him and his wife were shooting them.
Yeah.
And he's like, man, I'm really thinking about buying a Staccato. So he came rent a Staccato, and they both fell in love with it. Like she shot it and had instant success with it. Like the trigger's a lot better. So she got closer to the bullseye, and she's like, I love this gun. It shoots softer. I'm more accurate with it. So she was like, I want to come back to the range. And I was like, perfect. Then buy her the gun.
Yeah.
Like if it makes her come back to the range, then buy her the gun. And then she starts shooting more. Well, guess what happens whenever you shoot more? You get better. Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So then if you go back to the old gun or your carry gun, you're going to be better with it.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter if like,
that's an important point. The skills transfer.
The skills transfer.
transfer.
So if you say like, hey, I'm going to shoot this gun more just because it's easier and it's funner for me and like I enjoy it. Not even worrying about like actual training, like just like I want to go to the range because I enjoy shooting the bullseye out of a target, then buy the gun and do that. And eventually over time, as you keep shooting, you're going to get better with every gun.
Sure. Sure. Yeah. Well, and don't get me wrong. Like people may think like I'm just trying, don't buy any guns. It's like,
No.
You're talking to the wrong person. Like I am the worst person to talk to if you're trying to save money on guns.
Yeah.
Right.
But
Literally
it's not
the worst
end
person.
all be all.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
There's both sides to it, I think.
Yeah, no, and I think yes, you're absolutely right. If you want the gun, go buy it. I think what we can say about Staccato is that if you're looking to invest $2,600 in a gun and you're wondering why it costs that much, there is a lot to that gun. Yeah. It is very reliable, right? Assuming you don't start tinkering with stuff, like, and we can get into that later too, but like, just don't monkey around with it. Leave it kind of as is, and it will go as long as you can go.
And I think it's the best gun for the price point. Like, I truly do. Because you look at other guns, like you have like the Prodigy, right? Like Springfield Prodigy. And it's not saying they're bad guns, but man, like that's $1,500 gun. And I know it sounds like a lot. It's like, hey, it's $1,000 more for the Staccato, but like it is so much worth it.
Sure.
Like the coatings on the metal are better. The metals are better. The way that the guns hand fit, like the Springfield Prodigy is like, the 1911s that always have issues of a production 1911,
right?
They're crossing over into that 2011 because it's a production 2011.
Right.
That's what it is. Like they're just like throwing the guns together and that's it.
Yeah.
Whereas on Staccato, you have a person that's fitting that barrel.
Yeah.
Like it's hand fitting that barrel to each gun, so it's going to run as soon as it comes out of the factory.
Right.
You don't have to worry about it. And in order to get that quality somewhere else, like people look at the price points like $2,500. That's so much money. Like that. Yeah. That's more than any other gun they have in their collection, right? And it's more than multiple guns,
right?
So they can't see like spending that much money, but really that's a budget price point. Like in that type of gun, like a hand fit gun, like we just said, custom built open guns, 10,000.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
That's a fourth of that price,
right?
So you're getting a hand fit barrel at a fourth of the price. Like that's a steal.
Yeah, right? Absolutely.
That's even
if you look at like the who the guys? Les Baer.
Yeah.
And like
it's $3,500.
Yeah, $3,500. And and I haven't looked at Les Baer in 10 years, but I assume it's got to be still that much.
Wilson Combat. Nighthawk.
Yeah.
Like those guys are $3,500, $3,000. Like sometimes you can get some $2,500 guns, but
but they're completely hand fit too, right?
They're completely hand fit. So it's like just same quality and you're spending $1,000 less or $500 less.
Yeah.
And the reason why Staccato's got it that way is because now they're making their own parts, right? Like they have a huge warehouse,
right?
And they're pumping out so many guns, and it's a standard gun.
Yeah,
it's not like, hey, you call in, you tell us that you want checkering here, checkering there, like that stuff. No, they might have certain options, like, hey, do you want an optic on it? Do you want this optic plate, or do you want these serrations? But there's like 2 serrations to pick from. There's not 100, right?
Yeah.
Like if you call up like Brandon Strayer and you're like, hey, I want my face on the gun, he's going to program your face into a machine.
Absolutely.
And it'll get cut out of metal.
Andre, if you look up Andre Arlovsky, the MMA fighter, he has an Infinity gun or maybe a pair of them, and they have his face on it.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's like you're paying for that time, right? And that's why the price goes up so much more.
Right.
And like same thing with like Eddie's guns and stuff like that. You're paying for his time to sit there. Every single time he calls me, like I hear machines in the background and I hear a file.
Yeah.
Like I'm like, dude, your life's miserable. Like, and people still call him and like complain like, hey, where's my gun? Yeah. Like every time he calls me, just to like, as a friendship thing, he's like, hey, Brandon, like, how you been doing? Like, I haven't talked to you in a while. Just wanted to catch up.
Yeah.
I hear him in the back while we're having a conversation. Like, we'll still on the phone for 2 hours. And he's sitting there filing away on a gun.
Oh, my gosh.
Like, with a hand file. Jeez, dude.
We need to figure out a time, too, because he's been, I promised him that we'd get him on the show when we first started the show. But if you're not shooting open nats and I'm not shooting open nats, we need to go out there.
Yeah.
And go have a show with Eddie. I mean, it'd be a 6-hour show.
Yeah.
And it'd be you and I looking at each other in the camera and him like heads down looking at the looking at the gun, talking shit about people.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Eddie, I promise we're gonna get you on the show.
Yeah, we'll get you on the show. We can maybe do it like in his shop or something like that.
Maybe we'll have to drive over there. So maybe he can get us to his area match or something.
Yeah.
So I'm asking for a favor.
Yep.
Get us into your area match and then we'll do a live show over there. Or he comes to SHOT, right? So did he go to SHOT show?
Yeah.
So maybe if not anything, we can get him in January when we go to SHOT show.
Yeah, we'll go SHOT show.
So I think so reliability good. Yeah, we talked about the trigger on the Staccatos.
Budget we talked about.
Budget. Yeah, I think the only other consideration is carry. And the only thing really I've found with the Staccato is that, you know, the one thing I don't like, and it's not changing my opinion about Staccato, but the one thing I don't like with Staccato with regard to the way I carry, because I carry appendix in a smart carry holster, you know, is that the beaver tail. You know, so like versus like if I'm comparing the Staccato, the whatever the smallest one is, the CS, if I'm comparing that to the like the
365
SIG,
or something.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I carry. SIG 365. It's a little bit bigger, and that beaver tail really just jams into my stomach.
And I think a lot of people compare those two guns, and I think it's not the same gun.
They're completely not the same gun.
Like the CS, if you put it right on top of another gun, the gun that it goes to is a Glock 19.
Yeah.
Like it's the barrel is shorter than a Glock 19. Glock 19 is 4 inches. This is like 3.3.
Right.
But the overall length from beaver tail to the end of the barrel is the same size as a Glock from beaver tail to the end of the barrel.
Yeah.
So they compare it to a 365 because it looks that way because it's the same size barrel, but it's actually like a lot bigger than what a 365 would be.
Oh, certainly. Yeah. I mean, they made it to compete against the 19.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
So you have to think about carrying it like a 19. And I guess it's like for me who likes to deep conceal, you know, because I like to really truly secret conceal. You know, it doesn't work for that application, but if I was okay with doing a hip holster or something like that, I think it'd be just fine.
It's a 15 round gun. Like it's a Glock 19 is what it is, you know? So like same width and thickness of a 19.
Yeah.
So like you got to compare it to that. You can't compare it to something smaller. And people sometimes think like, I can't believe that anybody would ever carry a Glock 19. It's like, that was the standard for years.
I carried a Glock 19
forever. I carried Glock 19 for over 10 years.
Yeah.
Like that's all I carried, right?
Yeah.
Until 365 came out, like in 2020 or 2019 or whatever it was.
Yeah.
I think it was like 2019 or 2018.
Yeah.
Like that blew up the market, and it's because it was so small and like
and
so
you could
thin.
still get 10 rounds.
And you still get 10 rounds. Yeah. Like that was a crazy thing. So now that's where the market's kind of turned to.
Yeah.
But for a long time, like everybody carried 19s and everybody was okay with it.
There are a lot of, I mean, well, and then 19s and shields.
Yep.
That was the big thing. If you wanted to slim conceal, you did a shield.
But you only had 7 rounds.
That's right. That was the problem. You had to carry, you definitely had to carry extra mags then.
Yep.
So yeah, I think it's, and honestly, and I've always said this, it's like I should probably carry a 2011 more because that's all I practice with and shoot with.
I want to too.
Yeah, I know. So,
but it's like so like whenever you pick it up, it's like what we're used to because we shoot so many rounds.
I don't have to think about it.
And I've shot so many rounds through different guns over the years. Like I shot Glocks forever, carried Glocks, and still do carry Glocks for like if I go teach law enforcement or something like that.
Right. All right. So technical difficulties here. We're going to try to finish up this show. I think the cameras were telling us we took too long talking about staccatos. But so where were we? We were talking about concealed carry, right? Yep. And so I think that, I was just saying that, for the way I deep conceal, the smallest staccato is not the greatest for that just because of the beaver tail. But I think, if I holster carry it like on my hip or like get one of those inside the waistband holsters, just carry it like a Glock 19 we were saying, I think it'll carry great. And I think that, I remember what we were talking about, that we're 2011 shooters.
Yeah.
You and I are 2011 shooters in competition. We should probably be carrying this thing.
Yeah. And they have a new version now that's like pretty cool. It's so the CS has a completely different magazine.
Okay.
And that's what makes the whole overall gun slimmer. It doesn't take traditional 2011 mags. So they made a C, which is the same gun as the CS pretty much. It can take either regular magazines or the CS magazines.
Okay.
You just change the grip out.
Yeah.
So I'd keep the smaller grip on it. But then it also has a 4-inch barrel instead of a 3.3-inch barrel.
Okay.
So it's more like the 19 size barrel. So it's a little bit longer, but that's not the hard part to conceal.
Right.
It's all the other stuff, right? So I would definitely probably go with that model. And all the CS models and the C models are all aluminum frame.
Okay.
Which is not like, if you're going to pick one 2011 to buy like the P version with the carbon steel frame.
Yeah.
Or don't buy aluminum frame. Like, steel is going to last a whole lot longer than aluminum will.
Sure.
But like if you're going to use it, your second staccato that you buy for like concealed carry, then I'd buy aluminum frame for the weight.
Yeah.
Right. Because you're also not going to shoot a concealed carry gun as often,
Right.
right? Like you shoot a couple hundred rounds through it a year, and then run up all the rounds in a carbon steel frame gun, you know?
Yeah, honestly, and that's what we need. I mean, if we're thinking about it responsibly, like, okay, if I'm going to draw a gun, you know, and I defend my life with it, it should be, ideally, it would be my open gun, right? Okay, so it can't be my open gun. So then what's the next best thing? Okay, well, it's probably a Staccato with the same optic, and I think that's probably the key. Yeah,
because like there's things that like whenever I'm shooting open and shooting that gun, like I have so many rounds to it, like there's if I can see it, I can shoot it.
Yeah,
like that's how I feel with that gun. It's like there's nothing that's impossible with this gun. And like, I mean, I shot a golf ball the other day, right? Like I bounced a golf ball on the ground and like shot it in midair.
Yeah,
like there's nothing that I can't like happen with that gun.
Right.
But you give me like my everyday carry gun and it's like, man, like I don't know if I can do this.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So like that should tell you something right there. It's like, yeah, I probably should be carrying that other gun.
Yeah.
Just because, and like a hostage shot or something, I can do it with my concealed carry gun.
Yeah.
But it won't be as quick, I guess. Like it won't be as confident. Like I would be like, hey, let me make sure I prep this trigger, make sure that everything is perfect, and then press through.
Yeah.
Whereas on like an open gun, like a hostage shot, like I'm not even gonna second think about it. Right? It's just gonna be like boom, and it's gonna be like I know it's there. I can trust it. I have 100% confidence in it. It's gonna be great.
Well, and that's, you know, who was I telling? I was telling somebody about this. It's like, yeah, if I had to pick home defense and it was like practical, my home defense would be my open gun, because it's like, yeah, it's exactly right. You know, and then, you know, sometimes the guys who, you know, they'll set up the matches, who they'll do like these, they'll recreate those long shots that public shooters take, you know, or whatever. Like, okay, there's that 35-yard or 25-yard shot. And, you know, there's like so there was a situation where there was like some shooter
in a
mall. Yeah. And then the guy was a concealed
8 shots or something, and 7 of them hit target.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
He was braced and stuff like that, and it's super impressive because
Absolutely.
he did it with a carry gun.
Yeah.
Right. And 35 yards or something, and they all impacted. But like, yeah, you put my open gun, like 35 yards, I hit a mini popper, like bing, 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 and it's going.
I mean, like, dude, you can do it strong hand.
Yeah.
You know,
like it's like,
Mm-hmm.
it's crazy, right? So like, that's the difference. It's with a carry gun, it'd be like, boom.
Yeah.
Boom.
Right.
Boom. And that's what he was probably doing, right? Like really taking his time and making sure that he has rounds on target.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, with an open gun,
For sure.
there's the confidence is there.
Exactly. There. And that's why I was thinking too, it's like, man, if we ever really had to do that, then it's like, because a lot of times if it's, you know, with a 365, you know, and I'm as guilty as anybody, it's like, you know, I probably go through tens of thousands of rounds in a year for practice. But you know, I probably do 500 rounds or less with that 365.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah.
Like I change, whenever I change out my ammo, I'll go through, you know, those 2 mags, make sure the gun's working, and like wipe it down and re-oil it.
Yeah.
And then other than that, like every once in a while, I'll get just like a wild hair and be like, oh, I'm gonna go and do some hostage shots.
Yeah.
Because like,
well, you're an instructor. You need to, right?
Yeah, like, and it's just like I might have saw something on online, like a robbery or something like that, and it's like, man, like I want to go and like do some hostage shots, just like, you know, get the adrenaline going.
Yeah.
So like I'll put up like a little hostage target or something, try to draw and shoot it like under second or something like that, and it's just to like kind of go through it, and I'll shoot like 1 or 2 mags. I'm like, all right, I got enough. Like I did it, you know, repeatedly, and I'm good to go.
Right.
But I don't sit there and like actually shoot it as often as an open gun or limited optics gun or you know, carry optics gun.
Well, they're not as fun.
Yeah.
They're not as fun.
Don't put as many rounds.
Yeah.
Like I practice on limited optics the other day. I shot like 500 rounds, right?
Yeah.
But then on concealed carry, I shoot like 3 mags.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
it's like 25.
Exactly.
30 rounds, and that's it.
So yeah, no, and dang it.
So
We gotta buy tiny staccatos.
I have some.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, we go to the range. Yeah, I need to buy. I need to carry.
I have them on the rental wall,
staccatos.
so we just start shooting those, I guess.
Yeah, that's probably a good You know, I always talk about like I don't want to shoot lim ops. Right?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, that's probably a good
I like
reason
it,
to shoot
man.
lim ops. You do?
Yeah, I like lim ops because I don't have to worry about brass. It's not minor, and it's not as loud and concussions. You know, like, but it uses the same holster, so I don't have to worry about bringing 2 different holsters and learning 2 different grips of guns.
Yeah.
Like the presentation of the guns is the exact same.
Right.
and all the other fundamentals. So it's like it's really easy to switch back and forth from open to limited optics.
Yeah. I don't know. Well, maybe if Brandon Strayer makes me a skill builder limb ops gun, just like my open gun.
That's it.
But then, I think if had to get the same thumb rest and had to get the same everything on there.
Yeah.
So
that's what I got to do too.
But then, okay. So here's the thing. It's like, okay, now I need a skill builder limb ops gun, with all the same design. And now we're talking about Gucci stuff again, right?
Yeah.
But then it's like, okay, well then I may as well then have him build a smaller one. Yeah. That's a carry gun too. Oh man, I'm dead.
Yep.
I'm dead.
So if you're looking at a limited optics gun, I would suggest like the Staccato XL.
I think so.
That'd be they're $3,500, I believe.
Yeah.
So a little bit more than the P, but they're a notable difference. Whenever I was first, like when the Vision first started happening, we were at the Staccato event, the Prairie Fire event, and I was like, man, like it must be like the P that would be the thing, because that's the closest to the 5-inch barrel. That's what everybody kind of like had, a standard 5-inch barrel,
right?
And the P's 4 1/4, and the XL I think is like a 6-inch barrel or 5.5-inch barrel. Like it's very long. And I was like, well, I guess you go with the P, and Todd Jared was like, we were all having a conversation, and he's like, no. He's like, you need to shoot the XL. And I was like, really? I was like, it just seems bigger. He's like, yeah, come over here. So we went to the next bay. He's like, here, shoot mine. So he took out his gun and like shot it. I was like, oh yeah, this is like super smooth, like super soft.
Is it compensated?
No, it's not compensated. Okay. So you can't have it compensated in limit ops, right?
I thought there was one that was compensated.
There's the XC.
Oh, XC. Okay.
But the XL is like just for limited optics, pretty much. It's a 5.5-inch barrel, and it has like some serrations, bull barrel. But yeah, it shoots super soft. It's like a 7-pound spring, and the trigger weight's down to like 2.5,
right?
From the factory. Whereas the P's are like more duty,
right?
So they're like 4.5-pound triggers, and the springs are a little bit heavier on them,
right?
So, but yeah, the XL is definitely it's worth it if you spend the extra $1,000, get all that stuff done. I think so.
Yeah. Dang it, we need to get one.
Yep. I got one. I picked up.
No,
one.
I know you have the limb ops gun.
Yeah, it was a Staccato XL. I put a Chile grip on it. A steel Chile grip, and I still need to send it to Eddie to do all the customization that I want on it, right?
Yeah.
But other than that, I think that's a really good gun out of the box.
Yeah. Man. Now I'm just thinking like, man, what do I need to sell to get
to get it?
To get it. There are other things that I want to pick up though. We were talking about some of that offline. Like there's another one you have coming to the shop soon that I want to pick up.
Yep.
So I don't know. We'll see. But I think that's it. We talked a lot about, I guess from beginning to end, right?
Yeah,
so
history to everything. But if you have any questions about Staccatos, like specific questions, which one you should get, or what's the difference between different models, or our recommendation, we get phone calls like that at the shop actually, because people know that I shoot 2011s. So like, hey, like I'm looking at this, like what do you think? And I've steered people mostly two Staccatos,
right?
Because they were like thinking about, hey, should I jump up to that next price point, or be like an Atlas or something like that? And I'm like, no, like
no,
you don't need that for what you're doing, right? And like this is the model that you really want, Like I've steered people away from the aluminum frame on like a P. That's usually another common thing. They're like, well, I want lighter weight, and I'm like, you're not going to notice. It's a couple ounces, but the steel is going to last like 3 times as long. Yeah. Right. So like I definitely go with carbon steel or your first gun, and then after that you can get a aluminum gun.
Well, yeah, and I mean, and really, if once you have it under recoil, you don't know. I mean, once you're pulling the trigger, you can't feel that way.
No, you can't feel it. So
yeah,
it's but any other questions specifically for that, different models or about Staccatos, just let us know.
Yeah, just reach out. So we are on. So the Sentry Defense Facebook page is back up. But the interesting thing is, I can't.
A new one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't tag you on it yet for some reason.
Really?
Yeah, because I tried to tag you on a post yesterday with one of the podcast things, and it wouldn't work. But Twitter.
Yep.
We're still on Twitter. Could do the Twitter thing, and that's probably the most reliable way to get there right now, because Twitter's not banning. Firearm content. So they're not banning anything really.
Yeah.
So unless you're breaking the law, I think. So, But yeah, no, reach out. I think, we've talked for over an hour. We could talk, and this is condensed.
Yeah.
So we could talk a lot longer about this stuff. But yeah, reach out if you have any questions. And otherwise, yeah, we'll, whenever you have questions, we'll talk about it on the show.